versus the Reds, brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. And wow, what a game we had. That really was not what I was expecting to see at all. And joining me to go through all the action is Hugh. Hugh, did you envisage anything like that?
Certainly not. A great game for my comeback appearance on the channel.
Yes, I was amazed to see on Skype. So it's been 6 months since we've talked on Skype. I'm so sorry. I've been such a bad boy not keeping these things going. Yeah, the Reds got off to a good start, got themselves a penalty within the first couple of minutes, and showed they were here to play.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that their confidence, both with and without the ball, was a big part in the way that the game panned out.
And another thing that panned out about this, I mean, we had what's it now? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so eight tries in this. Only 8 tries. Wow, I thought there was one more than that. But anyway, a lot of tries in this game, and you've got to say the tackling left something to be desired at times. 76% and 74%. A lot of small missed tackles there this evening.
There were, but having said that, being so early in the season and the first regular season game for the Reds, I was quite impressed with other facets of the game in terms of skill and lack of handling errors. The Reds at the set piece generally were very good.
They were, and we saw that early on with the Reds, a couple of scrums pushing the Highlanders back. Now, they didn't actually turn over the ball, but they definitely put the Highlanders under a lot of pressure at scrum time until they changed their props.
Yeah, you'd have to agree with that. And it's, I guess, a result of the Reds team and the makeup. You've got a real mix of some very experienced players along with some very inexperienced players, some of whom, I might add, did play very well tonight, especially in the backs.
Yeah, and also the prop, I've forgotten his name now, who has lost 15.5 kgs in pre-season from when he was playing NRC last season for the Brisbane
City.
Yeah, I mean, wow, his story is fantastic. If I can have 15.5 kgs worth of ice cream, no, please, in response, that'd be nice. I think ice cream is one of the things he's given up for this. And the Highlanders came back into it. They didn't go for the sticks with their penalty. They kicked to the corner, and Thompson went over. The Reds just basically got their alignment wrong and ended up with one player too few, which meant all the Highlanders had to do was run straight, attract their man, give the ball, and over Thompson went.
Yeah, it was a nice cutout pass from Ioane. I was quite impressed with him. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on how he's shaping up as potential long-term number 10 for the Highlanders.
Yeah, you've got to say it. So in this game, he got up to 10 kicks from 10, I think it was, before he missed one this season, and then missed a kick and then made all these other kicks after that. So yeah, he's kicking at sticks, and we've seen this season from teams like the Blues and the Chiefs that kicking sticks is important. I mean, they both left points out there on the pitch last weekend and lost. So he's doing that very well. He's also running the attack nicely. I mean, when you've got someone inside you like Aaron Smith, when you've got players outside you like Ty Walden, Thompson, Fadders who came on, you don't have to be the guy who does everything. You're allowed to just let other people do some stuff as well. But he has got feet. He can do things. And I think he's managed to rein in his game a bit here this season to just do what's needed rather than try and overplay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It seemed like his decision making was very good, and he knew when to let the others do the work and when to have a go himself. His passing generally and vision was good, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Bryn Gatland came down to the Highlanders from the Blues to get more game time. And I'm not sure that's going to happen, to be honest with you. Clearly, he went out, dropped out of the 23 this weekend, and Marnie Banks came in. I still expect to see him in the 23 quite frequently, but Ioane at the moment is definitely making that owning that number 10 jersey. The Reds. So we had that. We had the Reds pressure the Highlanders for a bit. But then didn't quite make it, and they were trying to play, especially in that first sort of half hour or so. they try to play out their own 22 quite a lot, whereas they seem to switch that up after that and rely on kicking out a bit more after then. But they really were prepared to play from pretty much anywhere early on.
Yeah, they were. There was some. They had to, I guess, with some pretty average kicks in general play. I would have been interested to see Hamish Stewart's kick run pass stats. Actually, he took the line on a couple of times. He really seemed to mix it up, and he's another one that a lot of people in Australia and in Queensland in particular will be watching.
Yeah, so Hamish Stewart, where is he? There he is. I've not got how many kicks he made, but 10 passes, 7 runs. So as you say, took it to the line quite frequently. But I think I saw Hegarty stepping into first receiver, especially early on.
Did a lot of kicking, Hegarty, in general play.
Yeah, as well. It was when it went out to the wingers and the wingers kind of thought, oh, it's time for me to kick now. That was generally where you were getting the kicks that were poor and went straight down Ben Smith's throat. And he's not the kind of guy you want to be kicking straight to. So they took that lead, but then we had some lovely hands and some great feed as well from Faivia Sanitua, I think it is. The winger showed great finishing, steps inside his man, and then just walks under the post. Very nicely done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a really good one to watch. That one.
We got players like in fact both wings. I think had good days with ball in hand. But potentially, Narvalu got through 4 tackles, missed 4 tackles. Faina missed a tackle. The kicking wasn't quite there. To say 2 exciting players with ball in hand, but I think they need to round out their game a bit more before we see them get any higher up the echelons.
And as you mentioned before, Faddis, he had a huge impact in the 60 odd minutes that he was on.
Yeah, Faddis had a great game. He made a couple of he made 3 or 4 breaks in this game. Also made the match-winning intervention at the end of there, where he stripped the ball and kicked long downfield. So Faddis had a really good game. Put out on the wing last weekend. He can play there, but he's much more a centre, potentially full back a bit. One of those players who may be too versatile for his own good. Then it was where the Highlanders went ahead, and I thought suddenly, this game's under control. The Reds are looking a bit tired. We had two fairly quick tries for the Highlanders. Frizzell bashed over. Faddis had another big break. Now, admittedly, it was off the back of a pretty blatant forward pass from Aaron Smith to go through there, and Ben Smith finished off. And suddenly it was 24-10, and you're thinking that 14-point lead. The Reds forwards looking a bit tired. This game is put to bed, I thought, but I was very wrong.
Yeah, there was about 5 minutes to go until halftime, I think, at that point. And as an Australian rugby fan in particular, that's a period in the game when our teams, and including the national team, are notoriously poor. As you say, the Highlanders were on a roll. It was 2 tries. Forward pass or no forward pass was on the score sheet, and things were looking grim.
They were, but the Reds came back very well. I mean, both sides in that first half, when they put up a contestable kick, the team that was chasing it seemed to get the ball. It was only when you didn't put a non-contestable kick did you lose possession, which was interesting. Both sides.
Naholo in particular was very good at those, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But the Reds also were winning back their kicks when it was contestable, when they got the kicking right, I thought. And that's what kind of led to them to get a try just before half-time. We had the Highlanders, that got them territory. The Highlanders then lost the line out. The Reds spun it wide. The winger passed it back inside. It looked forward to me. They even had a look at it on the TMO. This one felt like oops, we got the other one wrong, so we'll let you have this one as well. To me, a try each with forward passes, with them going over, but some nice handling and great counter attack from when you've just stolen a line out.
I thought the Smith one was more forward, to be honest. It was a great ball and it was a great line that the support player was running, but nevertheless, and Karevi actually made a really good run in the lead up to that red try. Sorovi, I thought, at 9 had a really strong game for the Reds. He ran a good line there. And with the conversion, 24-17 just before half time, heads up back in the game.
Absolutely. And we came out in the second half, and it looked like that the Highlanders were going to take to grasp it again, because they got the first score, penalties for offside, and they still went for the corner. They could have kicked three, but they didn't. They went for the corner, and Frizzell bashed over for his third try of the season. So yeah, for you fantasy league managers out there, if Frizzell isn't taken in your league, go get him. But
I think the penalty count actually at that point was about 7-1 to the Highlanders. It changed significantly later in the game, but at that point, 7-1 was my count.
As you say, it changed later on. We'll get into that in a second. But and then this was the first hit time that I only missed a kick at goal, hit the post, and that meant we were 29-17. You thought, okay, yep, order has been restored. But then over the next sort of half hour or so, the Highlanders knocked on at least 4 times that I can think of. As you say, the penalty count went from 1-7 to 6-8. So in the last half hour or so, they gave up 5 penalties to just 1 from the Reds, and
I think they were almost consecutive too, weren't they?
There were some that let the Reds march downfield. It was like 3 or 4 consecutive. Yeah, you're right. And that really cut off all of the attacking play that the Highlanders could do. Add into that then Pataya having an absolute blinder, making some wonderful breaks, making players miss tackles, and suddenly the Reds were looking extremely dangerous and very fit. I mean, all that tiredness we saw in the first half wasn't evident at all in the second half.
I think you could probably put that down to Brad Thorne. I think certainly that's something that he prioritises. Pataya, I actually know very little about, but for someone who's very young, he was sensational, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play next week against the Crusaders.
Yes. So, first on was one of those knock-ons I talked about. The Reds kicked the ball downfield, all a bit scrappy, then some wonderful offloads to go under. We saw then Ben Smith make a really poor decision. A kick downfield, he tries to sort of get it, throw it back infield, and ends just carrying it out. And you think, either just let it bounce out and then pick it up and throw it into yourself, or catch it and stop it before it gets going out. You got caught in two minds. It shows that even the great players can make silly mistakes. And the Reds bashed over from that. And suddenly it's 29-31 with going into the last quarter. I think a lot of people were thinking, oops, we've got an upset on the hands here.
It certainly looked that way. They had all the momentum, as we mentioned before. They'd got a bunch of penalties on the trot. Their defence in that period was really good, and then I think they got four on the trot. And as they mentioned in the commentary, the Reds had lost a huge number of games away in the last couple of years. Their record was horrible. Contrast that with the Highlanders, who obviously have a very good record in Dunedin, and things were looking good for the Reds to get that win against all the odds.
Yeah, so the Reds. I think he said it was 22 losses out of 24 away games now, and I think that's before this game, so it makes it now 23 out of 25. I think it was 12 wins on the trot for the Landers. Now that's up to 13 at home. Now for me, around about the 65th minute, it looked like, okay, here we go. This is where the Reds cement it, but they didn't. But a line-out throw wasn't straight. They then lost a kicking battle that saw them ended up back in their own 22. And you think, okay, here's the wheels falling off the Reds bandwagon just at the end there. But the Highlanders kept on knocking on, and you kept on thinking, oh, maybe they're gonna sneak this. But in the end, it came down to that man Fadders that we've been talking about. Speedy Lee made a half break on the left. The ball went out to the right. Fadders spotted that he had a forward in front of him, dummied a couple of passes out wide to make sure the back stayed on the winger, made a good break, gave it to Ben Smith, who then gave it to Thompson was off the pitch by that point, so that would have been Ty Walden.
He looked in for all money too.
Looked in for all money, but the scramble defence by the Reds was fantastic. The hooker gets back, holds him just up, and eventually the ball goes out wide and Hunt goes over. The Reds just ran out of players defensively. But yeah, the energy they were showing on that 73rd minute to get back, to get up and make the defence, as you say, that's Brad Thorne's influence there, that these guys played for the full 80, but just that lack of know-how just to get them over the line, the sort of losing's a habit, winning's a habit kind of thing.
Absolutely, and I think they'll rue their discipline in the first half, and they'll probably have a look at some of their kicking in general play, as we mentioned earlier on too, and wonder what could have been. Having said that, obviously they had the bye first week, so it was their first real hit out. Playing away in New Zealand, especially in Dunedin, is never easy, and there's a lot of positives to come out of that. I think that the Australian Conference is going to be a very interesting and tight-fought one this year.
Yes, this finished 36-31, and I'll be honest, I was not seeing. I went for a 7-point win for the Highlanders, but I wasn't expecting it to be this tight at the end. To be honest with you, I was expecting the Highlanders to be much more in control of this game. That wasn't helped by a couple of things. Both sides, so Highlanders tackling 76%, Queensland 78%. So a lot of players are able to get out of tackles. The Highlanders won 10 out of their 14 lineouts. That's 4 lost lineouts. That's pretty poor. The Reds started well, but in that second half they lost 3 out of their 8 lineouts in total. So again, they lost. So we had set piece not functioning for either side particularly, and we also had tackling being a little bit optional at times by some of the players, which is perhaps a little bit harsh by me. But
I must admit, I thought that there weren't, from memory, any really poor misses in defence. A lot of it I thought really came down to more tackle busts as opposed to straight up missed tackles.
So he's been a bit kinder than I'm being a bit harsh, perhaps unfairly. There you go. I think there were a couple of misreads in there as well. There were some tackle busts. You're quite right, which led to 14 clean breaks by the Highlanders, 5 by the Reds. And when you're talking about 14 clean breaks to 5 clean breaks, you've got to say that to keep it that close, the Reds did an awful lot of good scrambling defence to wrap up those clean breaks.
Yeah, it's a huge discrepancy in that stat, isn't it?
So that's so we'll go on to a few of the players that impressed. So obviously there was Fotiakaya, who's the guy who's lost 15 kgs for the Reds. He impressed in the scrums. Any other forwards that from the Reds that sort of jumped out at you?
I thought Tupou had some nice touches as well as doing some good stuff in the tight. Rodder had his usual strong game. Angus Scott-Young I thought was a little bit quiet, but he's a player of great potential who I think will have a big season. And then
Scott-Young to actually top the tackle count with 15 tackles.
Okay, there you go.
So perhaps doing a lot of the unseen work.
Sure.
Rodder, as you said, got through 11 tackles as well. He was one of up there, along with Wright and Timu. But Rodder was also, I think, was the emotional leader of that pack. You could see him geeing people up and getting them, especially late in the game, keeping all the players going, I felt.
Yeah, he's definitely a good leader, that's for sure.
And if we look at the backs now, it looks like the Reds have got a pretty decent first choice, at least midfield with sort of Stewart, Karevi, Pataya. That's a nice bit of balance there with power and also with Karevi and Pataya with some nice footwork. They've got a good combination in the backs there for them as well.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Are you able to look at the tackle stats for the backs there? Because I know Stewart usually is a strong defender, as is Karevi.
So Stewart got 10 tackles, missed 1. Karevi 3 tackles, missed 2. Pataya 5 tackles, missed 3. So
Okay.
yeah, Stewart, as you say, had a lot of big guys running down his channel as well. But got through some good work in that. Just checking. The only point I will make is around some of the is whilst we're talking about Futakai, you got his try. He did give up 3 penalties, which made him the only one that gave up more than 1 penalty for the Reds. Perhaps a young guy trying to impress on his debut. Perhaps we'll need to. There were some words with him about that.
Yeah, Brad Thorne won't like that.
Moving over to the Highlanders, Frizzell obviously on attack got 2 tries, 15 carries, 56 metres meant he carried the ball more than anybody else. Whitelock also carried, but not for very far. And then in the backs, we had Walden, Thompson, Naholo all got through. Tavita Lee, and Ben Smith. Naholo with only 49 meters carried was the lowest out of those. Everyone else has got over 50 meters carried, even though Thompson went off early. Fadders was 65 meters carried. A lot of running, a lot of wide play there from the Highlanders.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me because apart from Faddis, who probably had those maybe 3 really strong runs, and every time he threw a dummy, he sold it, was unbelievable. But apart from that, there weren't really any standouts, I thought. The Smiths were good, but not probably outstanding. Ioane, as we spoke about earlier, he was good as well. Not brilliant, I guess. Faddis, obviously, the standout.
He was, and yes, he did 6 carries for his 65 metres. When you got Ben Smith is with 12 carries, Ty Walden with 14 carries, Naholo with 10 carries to try and get up near the same number of metres. It shows you that they got through a lot of work, but weren't necessarily making the gain lines or the breaks in the same way that Fadders had managed to. On defence, Dylan Hunt got through a chunk of work, as did Frizzell, so with 14 and 11 tackles. Ben Smith had a bit of a bad day on defence tonight. 0 tackles made, 3 tackles missed. One of those was pretty obvious towards the end of the game where, he got basically run round. I don't know if there's perhaps been some messages that he needs to keep himself fit and not get any head knocks or not get himself broken with the Rugby World Cup here. Looking after himself there by making sure he didn't get in too much contact on the defensive side of things.
It just adds a whole new dimension being in a Rugby World Cup here, doesn't it?
Yes, it gives us all sorts of excuses to come up with for things. We've talked about Naholo's kit to under the high ball and Fadders, and everyone else. That's pretty much. Hemepo got through. I think I will seem to get through a chunk of work as well. Another player that people will be Hemepo and Frizzell in particular. People will be looking at and thinking about, are they going to go to the Rugby World Cup? So look at those two to try and make big names for themselves this season.
Yep, plenty to play for.
Absolutely. Any final points?
Look, I think we've covered most of it. Obviously, being over here, as I said earlier, it was really interesting to see how well the Reds did. Next week at home, big test against the Crusaders. Very interested to see how they're able to back up after this week. The Highlanders, I don't think many people have tipped them to finish in the top 2 in the New Zealand conference. But 2 from 2, it's a good start.
It is. I got to say for the Reds, the fact that the Highlanders clearly were trying to run them off their feet, keep the ball in play. We had the tap and goes. For the Reds to keep that their intensity for the whole game was extremely good. Their morale is going to be tested because they've lost this game when they could have won it. It's very hard to see them winning against the Crusaders. I'm sorry, but that applies to every single team in the tournament. So they're going to probably start this tournament 0-2, having had potentially 2 good performances. So yeah, it's going to be a test of their morale. But yeah, lots of encouraging signs from how they played.
I'm sure, as our good friend Shane would tell us, that if there's a team that has character, it's the Queensland Reds.
And Shane will be on with me on Sunday after the Jaguares versus the Bulls game. No doubt we will touch on his on the Reds as his team. I've already seen him tweet to say that he'll be proudly wearing his Reds jersey tomorrow because of the performance the boys have put in.
He wears his heart on his sleeve. That's good.
Absolutely. And for the Highlanders, as you say, 2 wins from 2. Not in they probably should have lost to the Chiefs if the Chiefs had been kicking, because it was a narrow win. They could very easily have lost tonight, but they're a team that's showing that they know how to get the victory and do what it takes. The question is when they come across those Crusaders, Hurricanes teams, how they're going to go with those. But to get that away win in New Zealand and to have ticked this one off is a very good start for them.
Yep, and as we said, being in a Rugby World Cup year, it adds a whole new dimension with players being rested and so on, and they've got those 2 wins in the bank now, so you never know.
We don't. We'll have to see. So thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel up there. There's 2 videos there that the YouTube Artificial Intelligence says you'll absolutely adore, and down there you can help support me produce all this free content by going on Patreon and joining up Patreon. If you go on Patreon, you can even get yourself one of these natty hats. There's space for only 5 people on the Bucket Hat Club, and one of those has already gone. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow night after the Crusaders versus the Hurricanes with John, a brand new person on the show, and then also after the Wales versus England with Russ from the All Over podcast, and as I said with Shane after the Jaguares versus the Bulls. There is just too much. Well, actually, no, that's an oxymoron. There can't be too much rugby. There is just so much rugby on. It's fantastic.